Sarah was known as a quiet and calm nurse working in the city hospital's emergency room. Doctors barked orders at her. Patients were sometimes rude, but she never reacted. No one knew about her past, until three armed men stormed the ER and took hostages. One of the attackers froze the moment he saw Sarah and dropped his gun. You're that Marine from Fallujah, he said, and the entire hospital held its breath. Welcome to Best Honor Stories. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you're watching this extraordinary story of courage and hidden heroism from. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us preserve them. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's City Hospital glared mercilessly during the 14th hour of the night shift. Nurse Sarah Jenkins rubbed her tired, reddened eyes as she updated patient records. It was 4:30 in the morning, and the emergency room was finally beginning to quiet down. After 4 car accidents, 2 stabbings, and countless intoxicated patients, she had finally caught a moment of silence. "Jenkins," called Dr. Myers, a young, arrogant doctor. "Room 4 was supposed to get an IV. Why hasn't it been done yet?" Without looking up, Sarah responded, "Nurse Daniels is handling it, doctor. I'm assigned to rooms 2 and 5. Dr. Myers rolled his eyes. "You're all the same. Whatever, just make sure the BAC is checked in room 5. And the admission forms for the new patient are incomplete." Sarah silently nodded, and as Dr. Myers walked away, the other nurses gave her sympathetic looks. Sarah noticed this but was used to it. She had been working at this hospital for 3 years and endured similar treatment almost daily. "Don't mind him," said Nurse Daniels from across the counter. "Myers treats everyone that way." "It doesn't matter," said Sarah, trying to smile. "I'm used to it by now." But the truth was, Sarah Jenkins had seen much worse things in her life, had been in much more challenging situations. Only no one knew. Her personnel file listed her previous employment as Naval Service, administrative position. The reality was far more complex. Sarah's small apartment told a different story than what her colleagues might have imagined. There were no family photos, no decorative trinkets. Instead, a perfectly made bed with hospital corners that could pass a military inspection, a bookshelf containing medical textbooks alongside military strategy volumes, and in her closet, locked in a steel box behind her uniforms, a Purple Heart and a Navy Cross that had never been displayed. Every night when she returned home, Sarah would follow the same ritual: 20 minutes of stretching to ease the pain in her left shoulder, where shrapnel still resided too close to a nerve cluster to be safely removed. Then a precise 45-minute workout, not for vanity, but for survival readiness that had been ingrained into her very being. The discipline never left, even if the uniform had. There were nights when the memories returned. The house-to-house combat in Fallujah, the smell of cordite mixed with dust, the weight of her gear as she cleared rooms, the lives depending on her decisions. On those nights, Sarah didn't sleep. Instead, she would stand by her window, watching the city with vigilant eyes, always scanning, always ready. Old habits died hard, if they died at all. Sarah left the nurse's station and walked toward bed. There was an imperceptible discipline in her walk, a distinct balance in her posture. She never appeared flustered or disorganized. Everyone chalked this up to her being weird. "Here comes robot nurse," whispered a young doctor, Dr. Reynolds. The medical intern beside him giggled. Sarah ignored them. She approached her patient, checked vital signs, and prepared a blood sample. Her movements were efficient, precise, and professional. Nothing more, nothing less. On the other side of the ER, Dr. Harrison was talking to a group of nurses about Sarah. "She's just not social at all. Never hangs out with us outside the hospital. The other day I asked about her vacation plans, and she just said private. Who does that?" Strange, Nurse Daniels interrupted. "Maybe she's just shy. Not everyone loves parties like you do, Harrison. Or maybe she's a robot," joked Dr. Harrison. "Have you noticed she never laughs? And those eyes, it's like they're constantly scanning everything. Creepy." The hospital staff had created a game of sorts, guessing Sarah's background. Some thought she had been raised in a strict religious community. Others suggested she might be on the autism spectrum. A few even speculated she was in witness protection. No one had ever guessed Marine, let alone special operations. It wasn't just that they couldn't imagine it. It was that in their minds, women like Sarah didn't exist in those roles. Once during the hospital Christmas party, someone had brought up military service. Dr. Winters had proudly mentioned his 2 years in the reserves. When Sarah was directly asked if she had served, she simply said briefly and changed the subject. The group had laughed it off, assuming she was embarrassed about being a desk clerk or something equally mundane. The truth would have silenced the room. The conversation was cut short when a new patient was brought into the ER. Sarah closed her file and quickly moved toward the triage area. An elderly woman had apparently fallen and injured her hip. Sarah gently took the woman's hand. "Hello, I'm Nurse Jenkins. I'll be helping you." Her voice was calm and reassuring, the only soft voice in the ER. The elderly woman looked at her gratefully. "Thank you, dear. You're so kind." When working with patients, Sarah transformed into a completely different person. Her distant and formal demeanor with doctors and colleagues gave way to deep compassion. It was a contradiction everyone in the ER had noticed. "How is it that Jenkins is so good with patients but doesn't even know how to talk to us?" Nurse Rodriguez had asked one day. No one knew the answer. No one knew Sarah's secret. At 6:30 a.m., as the shift change approached, Sarah completed her final reports. In half an hour, she would be free. She could go home, take a shower, maybe sleep for a few hours. Then she would perform her usual routine in her windowless apartment. 50 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 30 minutes of meditation, followed by preparation for the evening shift. At exactly 6:42 a.m., the hospital's automatic doors opened, and 3 men entered. As the security guard at the door was about to ask them something, the man in the middle opened his jacket and pulled out a gun. "Everybody down, now." Panic immediately spread through the emergency room. Patients began screaming. Doctors and nurses froze. The armed men quickly entered and locked the doors. "Nobody move. Number 1, secure the doors. Number 2, check the cameras." The man in the middle, clearly the leader, was barking orders. His face was angry and sweaty. "Where's Dr. Phillips?" "I want Dr. Phillips right now." The ER manager, Dr. Weber, responded with a shaky voice. "Dr. Phillips isn't on duty today. How can we help you?" The armed man angrily kicked a chair. "Don't lie to me. Phillips is here. He operated on my brother, and now my brother is dying." Sarah was watching the situation from the nurse's station. Everyone was panicking, but she was completely calm. She was assessing the situation, reviewing options. Her eyes rapidly scanned the exits, potential weapons, the men's stances. This was a look she had forgotten for years, a look from her days in Fallujah, 1st Marine Division, Echo Company, Special Operations Unit, when she was Sergeant Jenkins, not Nurse Sarah. "Everyone on the ground," the leader shouted again. "You, doctor, come here." Dr. Myers stepped forward fearfully. I can help you. What do you want?" "My brother is Antonio Rodriguez. He was stabbed last week. Phillips operated on him. Now he's in septic shock. I want you to save him." Dr. Myers swallowed. "Mr. Rodriguez, I can give you information about your brother's condition, but this way." "Shut up," shouted the man, pointing the gun at the doctor's head. "Follow me. I want to see my brother. Now." Meanwhile, Sarah slowly removed her gloves and stepped out from the nurse's station. Without drawing the attacker's attention, she moved toward the patient rooms. Wounded and defenseless patients were there. She had to protect them. The second attacker, while checking the cameras, noticed Sarah. "Hey, you, stop." Sarah froze. She slowly turned and looked at the man. Her eyes were cold and evaluative, her stance calm. "Hands up," the man commanded, pointing his gun at her. Sarah gently raised her hands. "I need to check on my patients," she said calmly. "Get back. Everyone gather in the ER," the man shouted. Sarah slowly turned back, but something in her movements, perhaps her excessive calmness, perhaps her controlled steps, caught the man's attention. He walked toward Sarah, his gun always pointed at her. "You," said the man as he approached Sarah. "You're a nurse, right?" "Yes," said Sarah, her voice still calm. "I'm Nurse Jenkins." As the man got closer, he could see Sarah's face more clearly. And then something unexpected happened. The man's eyes widened, his face filled with surprise and fear. "You," he said, his voice trembling. You're that Marine from Fallujah." Everyone in the ER froze. The attacker's words hung in the air. Sarah didn't blink. "Lower your weapon," she said, her voice no longer that of Nurse Sarah. This was a commanding soldier. "It can't be," said the man, backing away. "This is impossible. You died there." These words caught everyone's attention. The leader let go of Dr. Myers and turned to Sarah. "Rodrigo, what are you talking about?" Rodrigo had dropped his gun and was backing away with a pale face. This is the monster, Sergeant. The woman from Fallujah. She cleared a house alone, killed 9 of our men. She's a ghost, a legend." Everyone in the ER was now looking at Sarah. Nurse Daniel's mouth hung open. Dr. Harrison had furrowed his brow. No one seemed able to breathe. The leader approached Sarah suspiciously. "Don't be ridiculous. This is just a nurse." Rodrigo shook his head rapidly. No, don't you see her eyes? It's her, the Fallujah phantom. Our people called her the devil, Sergeant." Sarah stood without changing her position. Her eyes, never blinking, evaluated the 3 attackers. A plan was forming in her mind. The leader didn't have a homemade bomb. The other 2 were nervous, untrained, dangerous. "You must be crazy," the leader said to Rodrigo, then turned to Sarah. "Get down on the ground, nurse. Now." Sarah tilted her head slightly. "You want to leave here? No one gets hurt. Now." The leader laughed. "Are you giving me orders, nurse? Maybe I should shoot you first." He pointed his gun directly at Sarah. At that moment, Sarah Jenkins disappeared, and Sergeant Jenkins returned. In less than a second, Sarah grabbed the leader's arm, twisted his wrist with a sharp movement, and took his gun. Before the man could even scream, Sarah had him on the ground, the gun pressed to his temple. "As I said," Sarah said, her voice ice cold, "you're going to leave here without anyone getting hurt." The 3rd attacker, the man guarding the doors, pointed his gun at Sarah. "Let him go, or..." Before he could finish, Sarah fired the gun in her hand. The bullet hit the man's gun, knocking it out of his hand. The man screamed in pain, but wasn't injured. Rodrigo was waiting with his hands up, terrified. "I told you, she's the monster, Sergeant." While keeping the man on the ground under control, Sarah looked at Rodrigo. "My name is Sergeant Sarah Jenkins, 1st Marine Division, Echo Company. And you know me because I know you too. You were Abu Bakr al-Muharib's man. The scar on your right arm, I remember you." Rodrigo's face turned ashen. "Please, put your hands behind your head. Slowly kneel on the ground," said Sarah, her voice filled with the authority of a soldier accustomed to the chain of command. Everyone in the ER was frozen, watching in astonishment. Sarah Jenkins, the quiet, boring, antisocial nurse, was now single-handedly controlling 3 armed men. "Dr. Weber," said Sarah without taking her eyes off the attackers. "Call security, then the police." Dr. Weber reached for his phone in astonishment and quickly dialed the numbers. Within 5 minutes, hospital security reached the ER. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. Throughout this time, Sarah kept the attackers immobilized, her gun never trembling. When the police officers entered, Sarah slowly placed the gun on the ground and stepped aside. All 3 are armed. The leader might have other weapons. The police chief looked at her in amazement. "You, Nurse Jenkins," said Sarah, her voice now back to normal. "I need to complete my reports." And as if she hadn't just neutralized 3 armed men, she walked to the nurse's station and sat down at her computer. Nurse Daniels ran toward her. "Sarah, God, I need to finish the reports," Daniels said Sarah without taking her eyes off the screen. "But you just..." Sarah took a deep breath and looked at her friend. "Can we talk later? Right now, I just want to finish my job." Daniels noticed the change in Sarah's eyes. There was a depth, a history there that she had never seen before. She silently nodded and walked away. As the attackers were handcuffed and taken away, all the hospital staff watched Sarah. There were no more mocking whispers now, no more robot nurse. Now there was only curiosity and respect. At 7:15 a.m., Sarah completed her shift, gathered her things, and walked toward the exit. But this time her path was blocked by the hospital staff. The chief of medicine, Dr. Stevens, stood at the front. "Nurse Jenkins," he said, his voice formal but respectful, "you saved everyone's lives today. We want to thank you." Sarah shifted uncomfortably. "I was just doing my job, doctor." "No," said Dr. Stevens, "you did much more than that, and I think there's a lot you haven't told us." Sarah stood silently, her eyes focused on the door. Sergeant Jenkins, right? Asked Dr. Myers, who seemed ashamed of his previous rudeness. Sarah nodded slightly. I was, a long time ago. What happened in Fallujah? Asked a voice from behind. Sarah's eyes momentarily drifted into the distance. Memories flashed in her mind. Explosion sounds, screams, blood, fear, and duty. I don't want to discuss that, she said in a definitive tone. Dr. Stevens nodded understandingly. Of course, but we want you to know that we owe you, and we're proud to have someone like you. Sarah blinked at these words. She had been working at this hospital for 3 years, and until today, no one had ever told her they were truly proud of her. Thank you, she said quietly. That man recognized you, said Nurse Rodriguez. He was afraid of you. Why? Sarah hesitated for a moment, then answered, In Fallujah, one of our units was ambushed. I was there to help. There was a house where hostages were being held. I went in before backup arrived. The room fell silent. Everyone was hanging on her every word. How many people did you save? Asked Dr. Harrison. But this was just a mission. And they knew you as the monster sergeant? Asked Dr. Reynolds, now without any trace of mockery in his voice. Sarah smiled slightly, but her eyes didn't smile. The enemy called me that, because for them, I was a ghost, a shadow, unseen. Just like you were here, Nurse Daniels suddenly said. You were always invisible, but you were actually always there. Sarah raised her head at these words and looked at Daniels. For the first time, there was a genuine spark of emotion in her eyes. Yes, she said quietly. I guess so. Why did you never tell us? Asked Dr. Weber about your past, your training. Sarah shrugged. No one asked, and I just wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to save lives this time without bringing death. These words hit everyone in the room. Behind Sarah Jenkins' silence, distance, and strange behavior was a deep pain, a deep past, and none of them had seen it. Can I go now? Asked Sarah, still looking at the door. Dr. Stevens nodded. Of course, but tomorrow, you will come back tomorrow, right? Sarah thought for a moment. Then she smiled slightly, this time with a smile that reached her eyes. Yes, I'll be back. My shift starts at 6 p.m. And then, not as Sergeant Jenkins but as Nurse Jenkins, she quietly left the hospital. When Sarah came to her shift the next day, everything had changed. Dr. Myers offered her a coffee. Dr. Harrison asked her out to dinner. She politely declined. Nurse Rodriguez and others greeted her like a hero. But for Sarah, the biggest change was within herself. There was no longer a need to hide, to conceal. She was no longer just the weird nurse. She was Sergeant Jenkins. She was Nurse Jenkins. And most importantly, she was herself. A week later, a new patient came to the hospital. A young Marine in a wheelchair, his leg amputated. Sarah greeted him and processed his admission. Jenkins, said the young man, reading Sarah's name tag. Are you the Fallujah Phantom? Sarah smiled slightly. I'm just a nurse, soldier. Now how can I help you? The young man looked at her with admiration. You know, I grew up with stories about you. You're a legend. Legends get exaggerated, said Sarah as she pushed the wheelchair. Real heroes are those who quietly do their duty every day. Just like you, said the young soldier. Just like all of us, Sarah corrected. Now, can I focus on my duty, soldier? The young man smiled and saluted. Yes, Sergeant. And as Sarah, a former Marine, now a nurse, always a hero, proceeded down the corridor, she felt completely visible for the first time. I wonder if there are silent heroes like Sarah around you. Perhaps that ordinary-looking mail carrier, or the security guard you pass every day, or the cashier at the store. Perhaps they too have a story they'll never tell you. At Best Honor Stories, we believe that heroes don't always wear uniforms or carry medals. Sometimes the greatest heroes are the quietest ones. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, subscribe, share, and help us keep these voices alive. We'll see you in the next story, and until then, pay attention to the silent heroes around you. They're everywhere.